There are moments in every person's life when they face intense adversity. They're crucibles that forge who they become as individuals and as leaders. Now more than ever, we need leaders who are called to a higher standard, focused on leaving it better than they found it, and paying it forward to the next generations. Now, let's join Fire Chief Randy Brugman as he speaks with leaders from all walks of life, as he explores and learns from their personal journeys and the crucibles that have forged them into better leaders and better people.
Welcome to another episode of the Leadership Crucible podcast. Today I'm honored to have on the show Robert Peterson. Robert retired from the Orange County Sheriff's Department in California after 33 years of service, where he started his career as a civilian employee working in the basement of the Central Men's Jail washing inmates' clothing. That opened the door for him to pursue becoming a deputy sheriff, graduating from the academy in 1989. He continued to be promoted through the ranks to sergeant in 2002, lieutenant in 2009, captain in 2012, commander in 2016. During his tenure, he worked in a variety of positions, including SWAT, Special and Directed Enforcement Teams, Academy Drill Sergeant, Self-Defense Instructor, and Commander of the Special Enforcement Bureau, which includes SWAT, Bomb Squad, Air Support Unit, and the Hostage Negotiation Team. As a Bureau Commander of the Central Jails Division, he oversaw running the very jail that he began as a civilian washing inmates' clothing. In 2016, he ran for the United States House of Representatives in the 46th Congressional District in California. In 2019, he was promoted to Undersheriff, where he was responsible for overseeing the daily operations of the Orange County Sheriff's Department, the sixth largest sheriff's department in the United States. Bob retired from the Sheriff's Department on January 5, 2021. Bob has a Bachelor's of Arts degree from the University of Oklahoma. He holds an Executive Leadership Certificate from Harvard University. He is a graduate of the FBI National Academy, West Point Leadership Program, Notre Dame Executive Integral Leadership Program, and the Senior Management Institute for Police. He's an adjunct professor for Brandman University, where he teaches leadership principles, and is an associate instructor for Santa Ana College teaching criminal law. Bob and his wife of 32 years, Christine, moved out of California and have built their dream home in the Blue Ridge Mountains of North Carolina, where they currently live. Well, Robert, welcome to the Leadership Crucible podcast. It's a pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Well, we both worked in the Orange County area. I don't know if our paths ever crossed, but I know we did a lot of work with Orange County Sheriff and exceptional department.
Well, ditto for Anaheim, leaders in their field, most certainly.
Yeah, I would agree. You've had a really interesting journey, and can you share your story of how you came from being homeless to leading the daily operations of the sixth largest sheriff's department in this country?
Sure. Yeah. So I in 1982, my parents were moving from Missouri to California to try and start a new life. Halfway between there, Missouri and California, my parents separated. That time I was 14 years old. I wanted to, I think I needed a father at that time. So I went with my dad to California in a box truck. We had a box of tools in the back, and just he and I, and my brother, who was a little bit older, so he wasn't really in the picture that much. He found a warehouse that we could get into, and so we went in there. We built an office inside that warehouse, put a bed up on top of the office, and he and I slept together. We had a toilet, a sink, and running water. So he started to change his life from that warehouse in Placentia in Orange County. And that's when, as he was developing his trade, a couple investigators from the Orange County Sheriff's Department came in to buy some tools from him. And each time they would come in, I would listen to their conversations, but I was sitting in the back of the warehouse fixing tools so that we could sell them, so that we could eat. Mm-hmm. one day the investigators, Bill Denton and Harry Sherlock, were their names. And I say their names because I will always remember them for what they did for me. They asked me if I was going to school. And at the time, my dad had a 9th grade education. He said I didn't have to go back to school. And so, I mean, when you're 14 years old and your parent tells you you don't have to go back to high school, it sounds like a really good proposition. So they asked me, they noticed that I wasn't in school the times they would come in. They asked me what I was doing, and I was just telling them I was helping my dad. And they go, well, tell you what, if you go back to high school and you graduate, we'll help you get a job with Orange County Sheriff's Department. So I thought that sounded like a pretty good deal because I had no direction. I wasn't sure what I was going to do. Yeah. And 3 years later, I graduated, and they lived up to their word.
So at that time then, what did they do?
So now, mind you, nobody in my family had ever graduated from high school. And so they started mentoring me. Every time they'd come in, they'd ask me how I'm doing, what I was up to. Finally, I graduated. They reached out to me and said, okay, this is what we'd like you to do. You're 19 years old. You're not old enough to be a deputy. So they said, we need you to come in. You're going to do an interview. You need to apply for this job, which was a correctional service technician. You're going to get interviewed. You need a suit. Do you have one? I said, no. I said, we'll go to the local Five and Dime. So I did. I went and got this big suit. I looked like a clown, I remember standing in front of Sheriff's Headquarters, Investigator Bill Denton. I didn't know how to tie a tie. And still remember Bill grabbing my tie and showing me how to put it on and how to tie it. And he said, just go in there and be yourself. And I did. And so after the interview, ultimately, I got a job washing inmates' clothing in the basement of the Central Men's Jail in Santa Ana. We're the only people that I ran a crew of about 5 inmates, and those were really the only people that I spoke to on a daily basis because I was at the bottom. Yeah.
Well, that had to be an interesting experience, actually just having the opportunity to communicate with the inmates and hearing their stories.
Yes. I'd say that I was familiar from the other side because my family came from some rough upbringings. Actually, at one point, I watched my brother in that jail. And to understand the streets and where most of these inmates came from, I understood it very well because it's where I came from too.
Yeah.
After becoming a CST, as soon as I was old enough to become a deputy sheriff, I went into the academy, and it wasn't without drama because I failed the deputy's test twice. As I tell people, big ears, little brain guy just trying to make it through life, My IQ probably was not nearly as high as my EQ. Yeah. And so I was able to be successful that way. In fact, it was roughly 20 years later that I came back to command that same facility that I started in the laundry room in.
Yeah.
As the bureau commander. Yeah.
We'll talk a little bit more about that, how that transition was. But, your story is really a great example of how one, or in this case, is 2 people really impacted the trajectory of your life. And, how important is that from a leader's perspective as you've moved through and went up through the ranks to, be an undersheriff in the 6th largest sheriff's department in the U.S.?
Yeah, to me, it's unbelievably important. Sadly, I don't think most people understand the impact that they can have on someone's life.
Yeah.
I found that for me today, the meaning of life and leadership are not mutually exclusive. In my case, 2 men went out of their way to help a young kid who had no direction. And the window of opportunity in which they mentored me was very short, but their impact has lasted a lifetime and will stretch across generations. They literally changed my stars, To put it in perspective, 2 investigators recruited the future undersheriff of the Orange County Sheriff's Department. And there's only been 6 of us in the past 60 years.
Yeah.
If you call yourself a leader, then you must find, guide, and cultivate future leaders. If you lead teams, then you must find, teach, guide, and grow future leaders, and maybe your replacement. Yeah. I don't know if these guys ever thought of that, but they were able to see something and say, hey, if we help this young man, and I was more than willing to help because I wanted to change my life. And these guys, they did that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think you bring up a good point. They can open the door. You've got to walk through it. You've got to be accountable enough to take responsibility for your own actions and your preparations in moving forward. But sometimes you really hit it. Sometimes it's just a matter of somebody giving you the opportunity to do that, or providing you the vision that you have. You may have another path in life that you don't see.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. There's, we talk about the wisdom of experience. Yeah. And when you're young, you're very limited, very limited on your knowledge of the world. Yeah. And I think for younger people, if they just understand, find that good mentor, find that person that has just a little more wisdom, their opinions have experience to go with them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes when you've traveled that path yourself, you know what someone else is facing or will face, and can give some good tutelage on how to overcome that, or at least help prepare them to meet that challenge. So I think you're right. I'd like you to just kind of give us an overview of kind of your career path, because you've done a lot of different things in the Sheriff's Department and oversaw and been involved in a lot. And could you just share kind of your experience as you moved up through and what you were involved in?
Obviously, I started in the laundry room, and from there I advanced all the way up to the mail room. And as you may have seen in other movies, I literally lived what I've seen on television. I would sit in the mailroom, and at the time, I'm 19 years old. Yeah. I would open up the pony mail, and I would read the memos from the sheriff to the assistant sheriffs. I would read the documents that were going on. I started learning the culture of the organization through the mail in which I searched. I also searched a lot of inmates' mail too. Yeah. Right. But I started to learn the flow of an organization. As soon as I was old enough to enter the academy, I did. I graduated with honors. Wasn't without some drama, obviously. I failed a couple times. Took me 3 times to get in there. And then from there, my career kind of flourished. It did everything that I think a person would want to do. Yeah. I worked the special enforcement team. I worked the directed enforcement team. I was on SWAT. I was a sniper for 7 years. I was a drill sergeant at the police academy. I was on these highly compartmentalized units. As I told you, when I went back 20 years later, I ended up commanding the same facility that I worked in as a CST in the basement, which is funny because you know that old saying about be careful of the toes you step on today. They might be connected to the butt you're kissing tomorrow. Well, there were still people in that jail that I worked with when I was 19 years old. Yeah. Yeah. From there, I went on throughout the ranks. So I sergeant to lieutenant to captain to commander, assistant sheriff, commander. It was one of those really blessed careers. Yeah. And in between all of that, I ran for United States Congress. I attended some of the best leadership schools in the world. West Point Leadership Program, Notre Dame's Executive Integral Leadership Program, the FBI National Academy, Class 41, where you live at Quantico and you train with 260 world leaders of law enforcement for 10 weeks. You live at that complex.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty blessed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were assistant sheriff responsible for Homeland Security. And can you share with our audience what that entails and why it's so important in today's environment?
Yeah. So at the time, obviously I retired a couple of years ago. Our Homeland Security Division included our Special Enforcement Bureau, Mass Transit, OCTA, our buses and all that. Marine operations, because in Orange County, we manage 3 harbors, basically the entire coastline of Orange County. Our Mutual Aid Bureau and our Orange County Intelligent Assessment Center. These are really it's a comprehensive wraparound for the county, or what we would call the operational area. OCAIAC had provided an intelligence gathering, multidiscipline information and intelligence sharing network with NGOs, non-government organizations, law enforcement, local organizations. So basically our job, and it's just what anyone would think it would be, it is to protect our homeland, to protect our county from domestic and foreign threats. Most of the time, residents don't know that these threats even exist. Yeah. Because as a leader within our organization, the key to our success, certainly I think during my tenure, was always leaning forward. Yeah. We wanted to be proactive than reactive. And when you have things like we have the Orange County JTTF, Joint Terrorism Task Force, where we work closely with the FBI and other federal agencies to respond to any threat that might be coming our way. And we have our Fusion Center. When you look at our Fusion Center or JTTF, there's 66 of them, and we ran the 3rd largest in the United States. You can imagine New York City and LA, right? And then little Orange County with a small population of 3.2 million people. But we were very robust, and we were very, very much involved in the game, because what people don't take into consideration when you're running, let's say, Homeland Security, and you're trying to do an all hazards threat assessment. We had Disneyland. We had other things, Anaheim, right? You're very familiar with it. Most people don't understand what threat level Disneyland would be for a terrorist group.
Yeah, it was interesting because I got to attend the briefings, the secret briefings of the local fire and police and agencies, FBI, CIA, and of course the sheriff's department was always represented there. And I think those were done quarterly, but it was just interesting to hear what was going on throughout the county, what the agencies were looking at and following, and then some of the things overseas that they were tracking as well. I think our general population doesn't understand the effort that goes into protecting our homeland, and also the number of issues that are diverted before they actually happen because of this intelligence gathering and being able to do surveillance and just bringing together. And one of the things different from post 9/11 is these kind of meetings never would have happened before 9/11. But today it's just commonplace to bring all of the players together in the same room and have these briefings. I think that's a major step forward.
Yeah, it's one of those unexpected. Like you said, you don't think most people understand it. Yeah. But in the world in which we operated, it brought a tremendous amount of security to the community, and being a member of that community, a tremendous amount of pride knowing that all these different assets are working together, while always protecting the Constitution and individual liberty, right? In doing it the right way, but in a way that added a protective fence around the people that we love.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
Good way to state it. And again, appreciate everybody that was always in that room doing what they do. And some of the intelligence gathering experts that were in that room were just phenomenal.
Yeah. You and I both know those young men and women are pretty remarkable about what they do and the level of commitment that they've put towards protecting our community.
Yeah.
Pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
Yeah. No doubt.
So let's shift gears just a little bit and talk about kind of a general perspective, and let's start with what's your perspective on the current state of leadership that we're seeing in our society today?
Man, so it's funny. Living in the world of politics at a certain level, you realize that there's a Pandora's box in dealing with this, but you also know that, and I'm sure we'll talk about it, courage has to come with it. In my opinion, we have leadership is failing across the board.
Yeah.
And I say that because, our society is divided and very fragmented. And we can start at the very top. And hopefully people understand, in our world, we're not partisan, right? This isn't an issue of that. It's an issue of actual leadership. Leaders give structure and stability and confidence. They unite, not divide. And I don't see a lot of that.
Yeah.
I don't see a lot of that across the board. Sadly, it appears to me that we've become more self-serving society than a selfless society. This type of behavior contributes to the downfall of leadership, especially when it comes to the selection and or election of our leaders. And therein lies some more issues, because we have stakeholders or people that are involved that leaders become beholden to rather than lead.
Yeah.
But it is pretty sad.
Well, let's hope and pray that we get on a better path in the future, because I think we're in a very precarious state right now for our country, and I think hopefully we can find a better path forward. But that brings me to my next question, and looking at our next generation of leaders. What challenges do you see emerging for them today in all professions that will impact their generation of leadership?
So, obviously, we just talked about part of politics.
Yeah.
The future leaders are going to have to understand we're a bright nation. We have some remarkable people. We don't always pick the best and brightest, right? Politics have a huge role in that.
Yeah.
Media, especially social media, they're going to have to understand how to deal with that. And the challenge is, again, if you want to be courageous and you have to step up, there are going to be consequences to that. But if your foundation is firm and you're doing the right thing, and we're dealing with things such as honesty, integrity, servant leadership, character, you're going to be fine. You're going to be super. There are special interest groups out there that when I ran for office, what I quickly learned was the vocal minority extremists on all sides herd the silent majority who are apathetic. So you have to be aware of those special interest groups. Things like social experiments, and this can be controversial, but the truth is we have this big push on diversity, equity, and inclusion right now. If you believe that all people are equal and should be treated that way, diversity, equity, and inclusion becomes really a nature of man issue. You have to start understanding the nature of man and why these things are important. Because when you're in the battlefield, You don't care about diversity, equity, inclusion. You just care about your brother and sister next to you and getting home, the same shared desire to make it home safely.
Yeah.
I think that they have to be able to prepare themselves and understand that we are an ever-changing society. Some groups are trying to make a mark on the world, the new renaissance of whatever it is. But things like what I was just talking about, that started when we were 50 years ago, when Little League Baseball, they took away first and second place trophies and gave participation trophies to everybody. It was a big deal. Everybody's like, what is this? Well, now we're all equal.
Yeah.
We've moved it from the Little League Baseball field to corporate America now. And you got to be able to figure that out.
Yeah. That doesn't do us any good as a country long term, and it doesn't do any good for us as individuals if we're not continuing to strive and to improve ourselves. If we just lower the bar and everybody gets a trophy all the time, then,
Man, I recently read trying to understand the difference between equality and equity. Equity, the article said, equity differs in equality in a subtle but important way. While equity assumes that all people should be treated the same, or equality, equity takes into consideration a person's unique circumstances and adjusts treatment accordingly so that the end result is equal.
Yeah.
Well, the end result is equal. Therein lies the problem. Because I remember studying at Harvard and a professor saying, do we treat the low maintenance, high productive employee the same as the high maintenance, low productive employee? Using that type of definition or terminology, you would have to say yes, because their circumstances might be different.
Yeah.
But in reality, we don't treat them the same, nor should you.
Well, and I think one of the issues, getting back to the equity piece of it, is that I think we need to provide opportunity for everybody, the same opportunity
100%.
for everybody. Yeah.
100%.
But if a person's not accountable for their own actions, they're not ever going to achieve, or probably won't achieve, the same equity as somebody else that is accountable for that. So there's a personal relationship to developing equity. You have to have the opportunity first, but you have to also take ownership in what you do
100%
to create that equity for yourself. If you don't do that, a lot of these programs unfortunately don't work because people don't want to be accountable for their own actions. So what advice would you give to the next generation in respect to making a difference in their life journey? So
I will share something that what I'm about to share, I've shared for years and years and years because it has helped guide me. And I, to my core, I believe in it, right? One, you have to have courage.
Yeah.
You have to have courage. Courage to do the right thing, courage to step outside of your comfort zone, courage to speak up when it's proper and necessary. You have to have courage. You have to understand that you are in control of you and nobody else.
Yeah.
You are responsible for you. You are responsible for your success, your failures, your decisions. You are responsible for you. And some key elements for personal success and leadership, your appearance always matters. Your appearance, people judge you before they even meet you.
Yeah.
Maintain a strong appearance. For what it's worth, your appearance matters.
Yeah.
Strong work ethic. For those in my organization that wanted to continue to progress, I just tell them, hey, you just got to work a little bit harder than the next guy. And in a big organization, we had 4,000 employees. We were a mega agency. You just got to work a little bit harder. I'm telling, trust me, just work a little bit harder than everybody else and you'll stand out. But you have to have a strong work ethic. None of this nonsense about, strong work ethic. I'll just leave it there. You have to educate yourself. I don't mean just books and academics. You need to master your trade so that you're the person that everybody comes to with questions because you know your job. I can't tell you the number of times us in law enforcement, we've run across an attorney who's going to have our job, right? Mm-hmm. Because he went to, or she went to law school, either one, and they're going to have our job. Not when you master your trade. Yeah. Nobody's going to take your job. Know your job. Be the best at it. And have the academics to go with it. Because it's important for promotions in that. Man, maintain a strong character. They can't take it from you.
Yeah.
Be that ray of sunshine. When people see you walking towards them, you are a ray of sunshine. They look forward to coming across you. Yeah. Don't be that rain cloud. Don't be the one that everybody doesn't trust. Don't be that bully, butt kisser, or crybaby. Don't be that person. Maintain a strong character. The fifth element of that is know what makes you special and capitalize on it. Mm-hmm. There are some people, they know they're good looking and they work it. They know they're highly intelligent. They're great writers. And you and I both know people don't like to write or they're afraid of public speaking. If you're a good public speaker, be the first to step up in your organization and say, I'll be a PIO. I'll do any public speaking you need. Know what makes you special and capitalize on that because it's unique to you and a subgroup. Really, really hone in on that and exploit it. Use these two words to guide you throughout your journey. Perspective and reasonableness. Always be reasonable when you're looking at decisions and you have to make a decision. Is it reasonable in what you're being asked, what you're being told to do, the directions that you're giving? Is it what people would understand? And put things in perspective. Is it really as bad? Is it really as ominous? Put things in perspective and work your way through it using those two simple terms. I think that's the advice that I would give because there is great opportunity. I'm living example that today I hear this a lot. I'm living example. I'm a white male that didn't have much, that was able to grow through using mentors. Man, find a good mentor.
Yeah.
Find a dozen good mentors as you travel through your journey, right? Don't be too fast to get to where you want to go. It's called a journey for a reason. Work your way, meander, but don't lose track of the journey. And when you find yourself retiring, you're still where you started. That's not a journey either.
No.
Work your way through it. Yeah. Know where you're going, plan a way to get there, and use other people to help guide you and their experiences. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Well, it's great advice. And, there's so many people out there that will help. And sometimes it's just a matter of asking and saying, hey, could you, give me a hand, give me a perspective, help me kind of help map my career out. I've had several great mentors that have opened so many doors, just like you, that, led me to places I would have never gone myself. And sometimes it's just a matter of asking them because they're willing to do it.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah. True leaders will always do that because they see the value in it. Yeah. And again, going back to the earlier statement about leadership and the meaning of life, what I've found is that meaning of life is being able to change someone else's stars. Yeah.
It's always it's always about it. We hear here at the Leadership Crucible, we say it's always about two things: paying it forward, leaving it better than you found it.
100%.
Yeah, if you can do those two things from a personal standpoint and a leadership standpoint, you can go to bed at night and feel real good about what you've done.
Man, I could not agree more. And I'll tell you, Bill Denton and Harry Sherlock, they passed. They never saw me reach to the heights in which I did.
Yeah.
but I wrote letters to their families.
Yeah.
And I wanted to share with their kids and their grandchildren the impact that their dads had on me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my guess is that you weren't the only one.
I would say you're right.
Yeah.
I would say you're right. I don't know the others, but I know I'm extremely thankful for what they did for me.
Yeah.
And my kids and my wife of 32 years.
Yeah. Well, we talk about changing the trajectory of your life, and those two gentlemen definitely did that. And I'm sure that you've done that for others in your own journey. And we thank you so much for the service that you've given to Orange County. Being a sheriff's deputy and moving up through the ranks is not an easy job. I've watched you guys front and center many times doing some pretty heroic things, and also taking a lot of crap sometimes. I just appreciate what you guys have done every day, and so thank you very much. And Robert, thanks for being on the Leadership Crucible. It's been just an honor and a pleasure to have you on today and to get to know you.
Thank you so much, and ditto for your career. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Leadership Crucible podcast. If you have a story of adversity you'd like to share, we'd love to hear it. Join us next time as we continue to explore how to live lives of success and significance.